Thanks, Sahim, and thanks everyone for attending today. Well, he asked for a short presentation, and I give the overall ideas, high-level ideas of what we are working in currently. The first approach, or the first idea is I'm involved in a CSH H2020 research project. It's a communication support action called TrueSec.eu, which is focused on delivering recommendation at the end of the project. We just started for trustworthiness labels in the ICT realm in Europe. So we're trying to get together different people from different backgrounds to understand what trustworthiness is and how it can be delivered in ICT systems, considering different conception of systems such as products, services, interfaces, whatever. So I'm coming from Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. We are a partner in that project together with other 7 different institutions across Europe. So what do we understand as certification? Well, in theory, certification has to be with a third party assessing your system of interest, whatever the system of interest is, because there are different kinds of certifications. So you can certify a product, a process, even people, or the knowledge and skills of people. And interesting part, certification is delivered or is certified at a point in time. So that means that this is a static thing. Well, I have to check the time. Okay. So the point is that, for instance, as Lucas just pointed out, that might be tricky for different kind of systems, such as service. For instance, service X as a service might be software or system as a service or whatever that can evolve over time. So you are certifying the status of the system or the behavior of the system at one point in time, but then it can evolve. Another point is that certification should assert that the system complies with a given set of criteria or requirements under specific conditions. And that's also difficult, not for trustworthiness. We are considering different aspects of trustworthiness, cybersecurity, privacy, reliability, even safety. But in particular, in the privacy domain, that's difficult because, as we have been discussing, well, in the annual privacy forum and also today, there are not that much guidelines or requirements or criteria that engineers can follow to develop the system. So that can you certify that you haven't got the guidelines or the requirements under which you have to certify? So since not for the time being. So some of the challenges we're facing here have to be with these things. For instance, flexibility. What are you certifying and which domain are you certifying in? And that's different from big data to Internet of Things, and even for standalone systems or products. And the different kinds of product, process, people that you can certify. These are different views of the certification. Another issue might be scalability of the scheme you're following. So some people say that mandatory certification should be in place to at least assess some baseline requirements. Okay, but is that scalable? For instance, for small and medium enterprises that must, in that case, undergo a certification process which might be expensive or even time-consuming. So there are different models that can be followed there, from self-assessment, where you got some guideline that you can follow and say, okay, this is my checklist. Do I comply with all these tips in this list? Or otherwise, you want to go for this third-party assessment that certifies something, you can go for that certification, but that's timely and consume more resources. So we should leave this open to discussion, at least for different models to cooperate. And that's another challenge. And finally, the challenge I would like to point out here is about the requirements. So for instance, in the particular case of privacy, we have been talking about the lack of guidance or probably criteria or even requirements for developers to follow. So if we haven't got the developments, how we can comply with then when we are going to this certification. And also there's high variability there. So what we're trying to do in the project is to put together all the different stakeholders in this trustworthiness area, but I'm focusing here on privacy and data protection, so that we can analyze the requirements from different viewpoints. First, from the sociocultural viewpoint, so that can be conceptualized. What do we mean by trust in the privacy domain? And then also from the ethical and legal viewpoint, so that we know what the law requires from the legal viewpoint and ethical viewpoints too. For instance, Lina this morning was talking about the ethical aspects. Then what is feasible from a technical viewpoint, and for that we need to understand what are the high-level requirements and how to translate that into technical operational requirements that engineers can follow. And finally, what is feasible or efficient from a business viewpoint, so that we need to consider here the business model and the different roles of the different actors and the incentives to participate there. Okay, so we are trying to put and to gather requirements from all these different viewpoints, from multiple disciplinary viewpoints, and to put them together so that at this stage each of these different domains are analyzing the requirements and describing different criteria, and they're trying to put them together into an online platform, what we call the stakeholders online platform. Then with all these results and all the debates throughout this next 1.5 years, we'll try to gather and to provide some recommendations for these European-wide trust enhancing labels. And for that, we've got this stakeholders online platform that is open for everyone to collaboration. So one of my first goal here is to invite you to join this platform and to collaborate from your different disciplines and expertise, because all of them are required. We're gathering viewpoints from all of them. You got some flyers out there about the project and the site to go and how to collaborate. So we're gathering here all the inputs from the different stakeholders and trying to put them together and get recommendations. So this is an iterative process. We will provide the project results. We will ask for comments. We will gather the opinions and the comments so that we can elaborate on that again and provide new results that can be commented again. So first point, please, you are invited to go there and to collaborate and provide your viewpoints. This is still in beta, but we're trying to move this to a more matured version along this month, so it should be ready by the end of June. Then focusing a bit, just a bit and too quickly, in privacy and the work we're trying to support this in the privacy domain. Well, I'm coming from a technical background, and we have talks here about privacy by design, what that means in the legal domain. But we think that privacy by design is giving the general rules that should be applied then for the development of different IT products services. But for the time being, privacy engineering means different things for different people. So, for instance, you got a set of books with the title, and we are searching for the title Privacy Engineering, providing different viewpoints. For instance, Ian Oliver, considering DFD as an entry point, or data flow modeling as an entry point to privacy engineering, to engineer privacy. You got the book From Code to the Privacy Engineering Manifesto, from policy to code, providing some high-level guidelines, but I guess those are for policy people, for legal people, and even more technical books regarding the details of how you can engineer architecture, or privacy architecture, or different components for privacy. But still there is a great variety of different solutions there. Also, there are some courses on education for privacy engineers. The oldest, so to say, and the most known one might be the Carnegie Mellon University Master on Privacy Engineering. But there are also some emerging courses and masters here in Europe too. For instance, the Ulm University in Germany. And also there are a set of events. Some of them has been discontinued. Lucas, for instance, mentioned the IEEE International Workshop on Privacy Engineering. We have been holding it for 3 years now. This was our 3rd edition. And well, we're trying to gather in the different results that researchers are providing and trying to understand how they can be integrated in a toolbox or tool set that can support engineers in their work. So different conceptualization of privacy engineering and different tools and different contributions. So at the end of the day, we got increasing research results for all these tools. You can go and check. This is some results. Sorry. Okay. This is a word map of what's contained in those articles or those papers that have been created in the realm. And you can see there are a great variety. And one of the problems is, okay, there are or is becoming increasingly available knowledge and research in the privacy engineering, technical implementation of privacy in IT systems. But the problem is how engineers can use that in industry. And that's a problem because the knowledge is scattered and not sure how we can integrate all together into a software development process that is what we are used to do. So currently this might be a summary of the privacy engineering landscape. Many tools that nobody knows where they are and they are disordered. So we have to put something in order there. And for instance, you are aware, the NISA people here is trying to launch this PET repository, assessing the maturity of all the different tools so that may help to order this currently disordered, scattered landscape of privacy engineering tools. And also about the different procedures or methodologies that the different roles in a software system engineering development process could follow. So we provided a definition of privacy engineering a couple of years ago, Seda Gurses and myself, describing what we understood as privacy engineering. That was a simple definition, just considering 4 elements that could be accounted for when describing what some contribution in this domain might be. So theories, what do you understand by privacy? Because we know there are a set of principles in the GDPR, but today we talked about contextuality of privacy. Also, there are some multiple definitions of privacy. That's the plurality of privacy, risk-oriented methodologies or goal-oriented methodology we discussed yesterday. Also some methods to approach that. So Lindun might be an example of a method or methodology to follow to engineer a privacy-friendly system. Some others, there are techniques, there are tools were presented yesterday and will be presented today. So there is still a variety. So what we did is try to organize these and try to classify, get some conceptual or framework model that can be used to organize all this scattered knowledge. So the idea is that we got different levels. The lower one, the endeavor, is the project you are carrying out, and for that you follow a methodology that should be defined somewhere else with different elements, and ideally to define the different elements of different methodologies there should be some common construct, some common vocabulary that can guide and understand how all these pieces fit together. So that's our idea, and for that we provided a meta model describing the different elements. I'm not going into detail, but just 2 different parts. We identified that there are a set of resources that is common things that can be reused by any methodology. And by that, I think of things such as languages, might be UML or notations or constraints or even guidelines on how to use different elements. And also, there might be different specific elements that some researchers have discovered or have elaborated that can be reused, but they should be characterized to understand how they can fit with other elements. So what we did is to provide a more evolved definition. I wouldn't go into the details, but just to say that there are actual definition of every element that can be discovered in any privacy engineering methodology, technique, tool, activity. So for that, we increased or we elaborated a bit more the Sendem model, which is a conceptual model for software development methodologies, but not specific for privacy. And in that model, we felt that different descriptions were missing. So what were they? Well, you need to define what you understand by privacy. That's the privacy conceptual model. Well, that one. So that is, what is privacy? What do you understand by privacy? These are the privacy principles you can follow. These are the privacy threats you are trying to mitigate. Okay. These are the privacy goals your organization is aiming to. Then you got a privacy normative framework that sets some constraints on the process or on the tools you must use. For instance, the GDPR sets some of these constraints. For instance, you must carry out a privacy impact assessment or a data protection impact assessment before any processing. That's a time constraint. You have to carry out this activity before the other activity. So there are some other constraints. Privacy engineering codes will describe how to use some methodological elements. For instance, the GDPR or the Article 29 is describing some of these codes of practice for specific domains, which actually details how you can achieve different activities in different domains. And finally, what is more relevant for me, because I guess that everything that is presented here and also in the annual privacy forum can fit into this idea of the privacy knowledge base. Can we get together and gather all this information so that anyone can reuse and access it? So for instance, the Hephoman strategies or the set of patterns and the like. Well, what we did is to characterize, to validate our model, we characterized one of the known privacy engineering methodologies, the Linden one, with the process, the tags, the activities, and the inputs, outputs for each activity. Okay, and we are now in the process of doing this with some other methodologies. So just as a conclusion, well, certification is a challenge in the ICT domain, but even more challenging in the privacy domain due to the lack of guidelines and recommendations. So privacy engineering is a new field that can provide these guidelines and recommendations, and that's our goal. And finally, the project is trying to gather all the different perspectives on how to achieve that. What are the requirements, what are the criteria, and how we can support them and integrate the different parts. So you are very welcome to go to the website or contact me or some other of the project partners and let us know your viewpoints and how we can fit it into the global model. Thank you very much.